Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Straightforward Therapeutics. This is your host, Gary Duke. We are still talking about relationship because it is the most important thing on the planet. Of course, your relationship with the Lord, and then your relationship with everybody else. As a counselor, I can tell you that when it comes to people having relationship issues, very seldom do they show up at my counseling office saying that they need relationship counseling in regards to some issues that they're having with their best friend or a friend. Most usually it's marriage counseling, of course, but every once in a while, not often, but every once in a while, people will show up to do counseling for relationship issues associated with their son or daughter. And that's really what I want to talk about today is the relationship that we have with our children, because it is primary to our life. And oftentimes, growing up, we think that everything's going well as we're raising our children, and we don't really stop to take inventory of how we're investing in the relationship with our children. We kind of take it for advantage of it. We just assume that everything's going to work out okay. I remember hearing a story I think John Maxwell told one time where he said, if you went to an airport and you saw people everywhere walking around with suitcases, and you was to walk up to any one of those people and ask them, where are you going? Where are you headed? And they looked at you and said, oh, I don't know, but I sure hope it's a nice place. You would think that that person probably has something a little off in the brain there. I mean, getting on an airplane, not knowing where you're going. But if we would not get on an airplane trip without knowing where we're going to end up, okay, why should we live this journey of life not knowing where we're going to end up? And why would we not give foresight to how things are going to turn out with our family, our children, our wife, etc. Because we have some role to play in that. I wrote something down the other day when I was thinking about this video, and the title of this is "Things I Wish I Would Known While Raising My Children." Now, my wife and I raised and two wonderful daughters, and they are two amazing women. And they're very talented. We were blessed. We were blessed. They never went out into drugs and alcohol use and riotous living, if you want to call it that. They really kept themselves for their husbands, and they are just amazing girls. And so I'm blessed, and I give a lot of credit of that to my wife. And I remember, I'll tell you a little story. I remember one time I was praying and I was thinking about how blessed I was that my girls didn't go out into the world and really, live a crazy lifestyle, because I did. And I thought, when I was raising my kids, I thought, when they became teenagers, I thought surely at some point in time I'm going to wake up one day and a switch is going to go off, and they're just going to be little hellions, because that's what I was, and so I probably deserve it. And I was thanking God, and I said, Lord, thank you that you kept my children from doing that. And believe it or not, the Lord spoke to me, and He said, I didn't do that for you. And I was like, what? And God said, I did that for your wife. My wife was a kid who stayed in church her entire life. When I met her, she was a 24-year-old virgin teaching Christian school. I mean, she just always kept her life in order. And He said, I did that for your wife. And so I was like, well, thanks anyway, Lord. And so there's a little story there. You can take it for what it's worth. Anyway, here are 10 things that I wish I had known while raising my children. The first thing is I wish I had known that I didn't know what I'm doing. And so I think that's important, because I think I mentioned previously in some other videos maybe that, parenting is one of those things that we just assume we're gonna be good at it. And I don't know why we would assume that, because, the only training we had was the role models of our parents. And guess what? They didn't know what they were doing either. And so they were doing what their parents did, and now maybe their parents were super great parents, and but if they just follow through with the same poor parenting skills that their parents had, then there's a good chance we're going to do the same thing. And so I wished I would have taken more time to really understand the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. I need training, and really applied myself to learn how to be a good parent during the time that I was able to do so. The second thing that I wrote down here is children are the image of God, not a reflection of myself. And other people's kids are not more important than yours. I was a pastor most of my kids' life, and much of the time I put my kids, in second place because I didn't want anybody to think that I was going to treat my kids more special than their kids. And really, that was more of a pride issue. I wanted to be seen as something. But you know what? Really, my kids should have been in first place. Not because they're better than somebody else's kids, but because they were my kids. And so they deserve to be in first place in my life. And they are an image of God. They're not a reflection of me. And so many times, we are in positions to where we want our kids to make us look good. And kids are going to be kids. And a lot of times we use strict discipline or set really strong boundaries so that we don't seem to appear as though we don't know what we're doing. And I think probably from the outside looking in, if we were to be honest, people see right through that, and they recognize the fact that that is just a facade, and that we're actually just, being too harsh on our children. The third thing I wrote on here is teach, never criticize. Eliminate sarcasm and mean jokes. I can look back and I can think of times when I said things to my girls that I could say, well, I was just playing, or it was just a joke, or I didn't really mean anything by it. But I did not realize how vulnerable my children were growing up as young girls. And to say something about them or to them sarcastic or critical in public probably had a really negative effect in their life. And I know it did because, I've had, one of my daughters shared with me something that I said one time. And I remember what she was talking about, but I didn't think anything about it at the time. And she let me know, Dad, that really hurt me. And, she was like 12 years old, man. And, I realize now that if I could do it over again, I would want my words seasoned with grace much more than I did before. Number 4 says, what they had to say was probably more important than what I had to say. Can I encourage you as a parent, listen to your children. Listen to them. They have something to say. They have a mind. And, we want to be heard, and we want them to hear us. And so a lot of times all we do is speak louder. And we never take time to really listen to what's going on with them. And so, you should approach your child just like you approach your spouse. Sit there and connect on an intimate level and really understand what they're thinking and what's on their heart and what's going on in their mind so that you can truly understand them. And that time you sit there listening, you are gaining respect in their eyes because they recognize the fact that you value them. Number 5 says, time spent with your children is priceless and time wasted can never be retrieved. So true. You'll never regret looking back after you get through parenting. You'll never regret looking back and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I hadn't spent so much time with my kids. You're never going to say that. There's always going to be those times when you're going to say, man, I wish I would have spent more time with my child instead of mowing the yard or playing golf or, doing whatever it is that I was pursuing. Time spent with your child can never be retrieved. Once it's gone, it's gone. And that's a fact. Never limit your vision of their potential. Your kids have unlimited potential. Believe in them. Believe in them. Invest in their strengths. And recognize the fact that they have a vision of where their life is going to be. Yeah, it's going to change as they get older, they get wiser, and things change and whatever. But invest in what it is that that they have a vision for and what their strengths are. I know my oldest daughter has a lot of musical talent, and from the very young age, I tried to invest in that. I took her to every Christian concert that came through town. We went and saw practically everybody. And I bought her musical instruments, and things like that. And guess what? She is 35 years old, and she is a worship leader at a church along with her husband. And she's a blessing to many, many people musically because I invested in that. And so I know that that money or that time you spend investing in your child is going to be so important because it produces blessings way down the road. And recognize the fact that their potential is unlimited. What's important to them should be just as important to you. Never discount what they feel like is essential or important in their life. If it's important to them at age 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever it is, don't poo-poo it. Recognize the fact that at this moment in their life, this thing really means something. And, as an adult, we might look at it and say, well, that's nothing. It's just a little thing. But, it's not a little thing to them. It's a big thing to them. And, when we discount that or we push that away, and we're basically telling them that not only is that thing not so important, but you're not so important either, because I would care if it were. Never miss an opportunity to make a memory. I have a little list of things on my phone that I wish I could do, that I wish I could have changed. And one of those things, my youngest daughter, we went to the Missouri State Fair one time, which I'm from Texas, okay? So when I got there, I was extremely disappointed because the Texas State Fair is a great state fair, I just got to tell you. And but at any rate, we were getting ready to leave, and it was hot, and I don't know why, but my youngest daughter wanted to ride this Ferris wheel, and she wanted me to ride it with her, and I didn't do it. For whatever reason, she rode that Ferris wheel by herself. Maybe I was just tired, maybe I just didn't want to do it, I don't know. But if I could go, and it sounds silly, but if I could go back and redo some things in my life, just a few things, that would be one thing that I would redo. I feel so bad that I did not take time and opportunity to spend that moment and make that memory with my daughter. And so you never know what those memories are that you're going to miss. So make sure you take the opportunity to make as many as you can. Live each day like it's your last. That's a good thought for every day, regardless of whether it involves your children or not. But that is a great thought. Live each day like it's your last. Man, embrace the day. Embrace the time that you have. Because today, the Bible says redeem the time. And I know it's talking about, sharing the gospel or whatever, but it's not just that. It's really anything that, we can possibly accomplish or enjoy or make a difference or use our influence in whatever way. I mean, recognize the fact that this might be the only day I got left. And so recognize that. And finally, in number 10, I put, remember the role that you play in your child's life will soon change. That is so true. Especially if you got daughters and you're a dad, you're the man in their life for a while, but not forever. And once that changes, you can never go back. And so enjoy it as much as you can. Recognize the fact that at some point in time, your role is going to change in their life. And so you'll always be their dad. I'll always be my girl's dad, but I won't be the number one man in their life anymore. And, and so enjoy that. Embrace that. Recognize it. And so I hope that some of this has been a blessing to you. This is Straightforward Therapeutics. We're still talking about relationship. We're almost done. But I hope this has been a blessing. And remember, hey, we're shooting for progress, not perfection. And I'll see you next time. God bless.